Okay, so just a reminder that we're a pay what you want platform. So if any of you want to contribute on a regular basis or on a one-off basis to the webinars, then you are more than welcome to do so. If you found this webinar useful, even a couple of quid will help me and you see with the costs of doing what we do and keeping it free for everybody. So that's my political businessy bit done. Okay, so I'm keeping an eye on your comments, so do ask some questions. But today, I'm going to reach for my, I'm not sure if anybody picked these up in the festival freebie bag, which was a Square Root Lenders Blackcurrant, but it is absolutely lovely. And I'm now going through all the leftover bags and mining the blackcurrant Square Root because it's really, really lovely. So hopefully it'll keep me going this webinar. But it's not in a very convenient place. Oh well. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if you have a blip or a lapse. And actually it's really interesting because today a couple of people have posted that they've had blips or lapses and asked questions about it, and also asked a question which is, I think, really important, which is that whenever anybody comes on the group and says, I've had a lapse, I drank last night, it wasn't my intention to, or it was my intention to, but I come on here and you're all so lovely to me, surely that's the wrong thing to do. And it's true, it can feel really weird that somehow we can sometimes wonder whether people are coming on and telling us about their lapses in order to get forgiveness. And also sometimes, particularly when people have had a number of lapses, if we're always terribly nice to people, maybe we're not being as helpful as we like to. And I do want to address that at some point, and it's partly why I brought in the WOOP system, the Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. It's partly why I brought in that system, so that we can all use it to support each other. But in 2 weeks' time, I will talk about how we as a group can support each other when we've had a blip or a lapse. But in the meantime, I just want to talk about what a blip or a lapse means ultimately for us when they happen. Just double checking we are still live. Cool. So it isn't unusual to have a blip or a lapse. And actually, if you look at it, even some of us who don't follow through with a thought about drinking still come on here and talk about the potential lapse that was nearly there, or a sober swerve, or a situation they avoided but want to tell us about. And then there are those of us that go for full-blown lapse, which might be just we had planned to do something different in an evening and circumstances overcame us and we drank. Or it might be that we've disappeared from the group for some time because we had a blip, and that blip has lasted not just one night but months, weeks, whatever, and we're slowly coming back because we realised that one blip led to months of excess again. So there are many different types of blips, and there are many reasons why we might do those. But it's not me giving you permission to have a night off and to try out a blip, but a blip or a lapse is something that you can learn a huge amount from. So rather than miring ourselves in doom and gloom about our behaviour and the fact that we didn't stick to a plan, it's really important that we work out what it is that we learn from that. And most important is how we pick up again as quickly as possible. And my strong view is, doesn't matter how many day ones that you have, and you may feel frustrated by having a number of day ones, each one makes you more resilient. Each one teaches you something new, and it's the speed by which you pick up your goal again that makes you stronger and makes and means that you progress, rather than going, oh damn, I had a lapse, I'm clearly a complete failure, I'm going to hit the fuck it button and I'm going to hit it for 3 months. Actually, it's about stopping yourself and going, okay, this was something I need to learn from, and now I need to pick up as quickly as possible before I lose the momentum that I have gained from however many days, however many weeks that I've managed to date. So what is a blip? Well, for moderators, it may be that you had a few too many drinks on a day when you had planned to be alcohol free. It may be you exceeded your planned limit for the evening, so you wanted to stop at 2 and you ended up drinking 2 bottles. You may have started with an alcoholic drink when you meant the first few to be alcohol free. Basically, you just didn't stick to your plan. And a blip can be anywhere between, like I said, a few too many and a total skinful, which means you don't remember, you have a blackout, you wake up the following morning going, whoa, what happened there? And so for all of us, it could be a different amount, it could be different types of things, it could be anything from a few drinks through to a full blowout. And I guess how big or how long your blip lasts will affect how you feel about it. And so when we all talk about our blips here, they are very personal to us, both in terms of the thing that triggered the blip, how long it lasted, how much we drank, how it made us feel. When we're going alcohol free, it's also very similar. You may have had one night of excess before bearing, before telling the group that you had a blip and getting back on it again, or you may disappear from the group for a few months, which happens often, and come back after a few weeks. So, like I said, not all blips the same, but how you respond to them and how you deal with them and how you learn from them can be pretty much the same, regardless of how long that blip has been. And the most important thing, however long it's been, even if you're feeling really embarrassed because it's been a few weeks that you suddenly started caning it again, the thing is not to be so embarrassed that you don't come back, but to get to that point where you say, hang on, this has got to stop. I've jeopardized all that I've learned so far. Now is the time to get back on it. And I don't, for me, the most important thing is that you come back to this group and don't ever feel embarrassed when you've fallen off the wagon or when you've had a blip or however long that blip has lasted. This is the place where you can come and where you can start to rebuild again and to get back to where you want to be. So that's really important. Okay, I'm still live. That's a good sign. Okay, cool. Right, so like I said, blip can be many things. It can depend on what your goal is. It can depend on a length of time. It can depend on how much you drank. One of the common responses to a blip is to see this as a failure. Damn, I failed. I haven't achieved perfection, because you wrote down what perfection was. Perfection is 6 months alcohol free. Perfection is stopping after 2 drinks. Perfection is A, B, and C, whatever it was that you set as your goal. That was your idea of perfection. And by drinking when you weren't planning to, or drinking too much when you weren't planning to, means that you've just blown your myth of what perfection is. And as human beings, we're really good at seeing that blip, that as being, that's it, I failed totally at everything I've done. We do it all the time, and it really, really feeds into the inner critic in us who goes, yeah, see, you're a failure, you may as well carry on drinking. And I see it all the time when people come in the group and they keep going to day one, they keep saying, I'm probably a lost cause, there's nothing that can be done for me. None of that is true. That's your inner critic talking, and it's not letting you see the value that you've accrued. And you do accrue value. If you've done 6 days and you've never done 6 days before, then that's 6 days where you've learned that you've been alcohol free, and if you can do 6 days, you can do it again. This blip may have got away in the middle, but you know what? You're never going to get anywhere unless you pick up and start again. So never ever let a blip be seen as a total failure of your goal. It's just another stepping stone along your journey to getting to where you want to be. And it's not unusual, and it's not a sign you're a failure, and it's not a lack of perfection, right? This is exactly what all of us have been through. Really interesting for me today, which is I talk about the fact that I still have triggers, and they still do happen. They're very subtle. What happens is they actually catch me by surprise, but I had a trigger today, right? So we've got friends here that I've known for, one of them I've known nearly all my life, and they're from Somerset, and we went to the market at South Bank, the food market, and there's Somerset cider there, and normally I can just, walk past that Somerset cider stand. It's like literally half a mile from where I grew up, the guys who sell it. I can normally swerve it, but my mate came back with a pint for himself, and they were all trying it, and I had this pang, this absolute pang. I just acknowledged to myself that I was having a pang. It didn't mean I wanted to drink, but in the lovely hot weather with some wonderful Somerset cider with some friends that I've known a long time, it suddenly hit me, and it was really odd. But I recognised it. Now that could have turned into a lapse, but it didn't. But it does show you that even after 5 years, those triggers are still really strong. And so give yourself a break. If you've not managed to achieve where you wanted quite yet, that's okay, because that is normal, right? That is normal, guys. The other is that you may come on here because you want onto the group because you want to gain forgiveness for having drunk, and you think if everyone's really nice to you, then you will feel less guilty. Now, my view is that you should never feel guilty about a blip. What you might want to feel disappointed with yourself about is if you don't pick up again, you don't listen to advice, you don't move on. So the group isn't here to forgive you, but by putting your story out there, you are soliciting advice, you're asking for people to comment, and those comments could be positive or negative. They could be advice that's good for you or not useful for you, or anything. But it may be that, but don't be upset if you don't always get the response that you want. And therefore use that as a reason to go, well, clearly I'm not as perfect as Joe or Jill or whoever who have now managed 12 months. I'm never going to be like them, and their advice doesn't even work for me. So don't use the group as an excuse to sort of justify the fact that you're a failure and then go and hit the fuck it button, right? So don't do that. So don't make sure that you use the group in a really positive way. You also may look at and go, well, clearly the goal I set myself doesn't work for me. So instead of limiting myself to 2 glasses of wine on a Saturday night, I'll only limit it to a bottle, and that might work. Now, what you're doing is you're shifting your goals to accommodate your blip rather than working out what happened with your blip. Now, I'm all for you moving the goalposts as you go along and you learn more about your drinking habits, but never do that just in response to a blip without analysing that blip and moving your goalposts to accommodate. Because what will happen is you'll go, well, I'm going to add Thursday nights to my drinking nights because I can't not drink on a Thursday, and then suddenly your days of the week will all stack up, or the number of drinks that you decide you'll have. So don't respond to your blip by just changing your goal without really thinking it through first. And also don't necessarily use it to change your goal from alcohol free to moderation. I see that happen a lot in the group, actually, that suddenly people go, oh, well, I blipped, so I think I'll make moderation my goal now, because then I don't feel like so much of a failure, and I will try moderating. And I see people oscillate between the two, because then actually just by changing your goal to moderation, you give yourself permission to drink, and then you start caning it for a few weeks. Definitely seen that happen as well. So don't, change your goal from one to another. And I often see people resetting their days to 0, and other people feeling really conscious if they didn't reset their days to 0. One thing I'd say about that is really it's up to you. You know what works for you. And if reflecting on the success you've had and marking down a blip as, so say you did 365 days with one blip, if that's a great way for you to measure it, that's fine. If resetting to day 1 works for you, that's fine too. But don't see, if you're finding resetting to day 1 perpetuates that feeling of failure, then think of another way that you can count this so that it doesn't trigger you to want to just go, well, that's it, I'm clearly no good at this, I'm going to just carry on drinking like I was before. So those are common responses I've seen to blips. Cool. So Gary has quite rightly pointed out that learning is the most important thing, and that's what I'm going to come on to now. So how do you respond to your blip then? If I've talked about the common responses, which basically is code for responses that I don't think are particularly useful for you, and instead let's look at how you could respond. And the first thing to do is to commit to getting back on the wagon now. Not tomorrow, not in a fictional week's time, not on Monday because you had your blip on a Saturday, not on Tuesday because it's a bank holiday weekend. Now is the time that you need to get back on it. The sooner you can recommit to your goal, the sooner you get back on to doing that, the better it be. And that works the same for a diet. That works the same for avoiding the sourdough donut van at Spitalfields Market. I'm going to miss it so much. It's for any behaviour change. The sooner you can get back on track, the more powerful you will feel, and the less your blip would have affected your overall goal, the more resilient you will become. So get back on it now. But how do you do that? Well, first of all, about creating some space just for you to think about the blip. It doesn't have to be masses of time. I would highly recommend you put that time aside when you're not suffering from a raging hangover and guilt, because actually having a bit of a clear head will help. So you may, if the one thing that you do when you're suffering from a hangover after a blip is to say, right, tomorrow at 9 a.m, I'm putting half an hour aside for me to really reflect on this, then that's a really positive thing. And then spend the rest of the day eating carbs and sugar and sleeping and resting and restoring and getting yourself ready for that half hour you're putting aside for yourself. But put that time aside. Don't be flippant. Don't, you owe yourself this time to really reflect on what happened. Now, it may not take you half an hour, but by putting the time aside, you've made a real personal commitment to yourself. It's a commitment to self-care that is really, really powerful. So even if the only thing you can manage when you've got a hangover is to say, right, this is the time that I think I'll feel better, I'm going to put aside for me to think about my goal and how I'm going to get back on this, and that's perfect. That's what I would love you to do. And then you need to recognise that it happened. Don't redraw your goal to accommodate the lapse, but look at how you might reflect on it and recommit to your goal. So accept that it's happened. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel remorse. Don't feel angry with yourself. I do a lot of feeling angry with myself when I fall off the wagon in terms of all sorts of my goals. Like, you know, that amazing amount of swimming I did in June when I was trying to beat Jill. Swam 44 kilometres in a month. Swam nothing since. Now, I could spend lots of time being angry with myself, but that time I spend being angry with myself might be better spent working out what I'm going to do next, why it is I didn't get back in the pool, what it was about that competitive thing with Jill that made me do all that swimming. Who knew? But, you know, anger and guilt just swallow you up. So recognise that it happened, put it to one side, and then reflect on it. Now, what would you reflect? Well, first of all, you can reflect on what made you do it. Was it social pressure? Was it friends? Was it a sense of occasion? What is it that you gave into? Did you just not plan to surf the urge? Was your inner critic too strong at that point? Were you tired? Were you hungry? Were you lonely? Were you angry? Did you manage similar situations like this where you didn't drink? Therefore, what made this one different? Was this a first for you? Had you not been with this set of people since you've given up drinking? Was it a particular occasion that people normally associate with drinking? Absolutely delve into it and just work it all out. And I was really touched by Stephanie's post today, because basically what she did is articulated her lapse today to all of us, and in it are so many home truths. And like I said, your reflection doesn't have to be long. Stephanie's post is, you know, a couple of paragraphs, but they're a really powerful couple of paragraphs, because what she's done is she's analysed the situation, she's evaluated it, she's taken the learning, and she's told us how she's going to move on. And let me just demonstrate that by actually telling you what Stephanie said today. So it doesn't have to be some epic. You're not writing War and Peace here, guys. Her mate said to her, you just need to live a little. Quit trying to be so perfect. Every single bit of that one sentence, it just hits you at the core, doesn't it? You've got somebody who you care about telling you not to be perfect. You're allowed to let your hair down. You just need to live a little, because clearly you're not living if you're not drinking. Every bit of that was loaded. It was really hard to refuse, and Stephanie recognises that. By telling us that sentence, she tells us huge amounts, but she needs to unpack that for herself. I'm a little bit angry with her mate, to be honest, because I think, who are you to tell somebody what they should be doing? Who are you to say to somebody what living is? Who are you to take somebody off their goal? But of course, it's easy for me to say, sat from outside, and it's a friend, and friends are very influential. Friends will help, affect our behaviour. But it was clearly the trigger for Stephanie, and she may now want to say to herself, well, that's really interesting. That language really impacted on my inner critic. It gave my inner critic everything it needed to go, right, have a drink. So how would I deal with that language in the future? How would I deal with a friend who said that to me? Do I need to be clear with people from the outset that this goal I have is really important to me and I need their help? Do I need to be clear with them about the fact that I don't want people to give me pressure? do I feel that I'm still missing out if I'm not drinking? If so, do I need to avoid some things in the future? Do I need to take my own drinks? What is it I need to do? So already Stephanie has articulated the killer punchline for her, and then has talked about what the consequences of that were. So she's already begun to analyse that situation. Just double checking. Cool. Then her mate said, and then she said, well, I drank almost a whole bottle worth. Now, that's really awful because her goal is to be alcohol free. But there's something really core in what she does in sharing that, which is that she went to have one glass and she drank a whole bottle. It reconfirms the reason why she has started to go alcohol free to begin with, that once alcohol hits her brain no longer has the ability to say stop. Just like me, just like loads of us. And so even if she was on a moderation goal, she might be able to sit and say to herself, wow, once alcohol hits my bloodstream, I lose the ability to make decisions around what I'm drinking. And this tells me something quite fundamental. Your old behaviour took over, your brain chemistry changed, and you just wanted more. And so actually by articulating that, she tells herself something else about her behaviour. And so actually at this point she could also say, actually this became something outside of my control. And I have to accept that when I drink, I no longer have control. So I won't feel guilty. I can make a decision about whether I had the first drink in the first place, but actually I lose that ability to control it after a whole bottle. And then she talks about being up all night with anxiety and a killer headache. And again, is this what not being perfect feels like? You know, is that how you want to feel in the future? So she's actually talked about the consequences of making that decision, how it made her feel, and that that actually sticking to her goal might be the perfect that she's after, the life that she wants to achieve, not being drawn back into behaviour she used to do. And then she talked about the fact that it was absolute madness to put herself in a situation of attending a boozy girls weekend and thinking I could just sail past all my triggers. Oh, such a beautiful sentence, because what it says is she hadn't really planned. She put herself in a first situation, maybe without enough time behind her, with friends who she normally drinks with, a huge amount of social pressures. Now, you won't ever be able to avoid all sorts of situations, and everyone needs to get through a first Christmas, a first birthday, a first hen weekend, whatever. We will always have those coming up. But what she says in that sentence is she could have planned, she hadn't recognised how many triggers there would be, and so on. So she's already got the genesis of being able to look at what her weekend was like, what caused that to happen, and how she feels about it, and what she might do in the future. That is so incredibly powerful. So it may have been a blip, but it's a powerful blip. It has taught her so much, because after a few months, and we all know this, complacency can settle in. You can forget what it was like to drink, and you think that you might be able to moderate, or you might be able to go back to drinking. And this blip has told Stephanie that actually that's not right for her right now, that she needs to do more, that she needs to plan more, that there are things that she still wants to change. So far from it being something she should feel guilty about, it should be something she should notch up to experience and learn from. And every single bit of what she wrote today shows that she is reviewing and learning from that. And I want you to be able to do the same. I need blackcurrant. Oh, and my laptop's slipping. I'm sure, right, like there are professional people you could watch who do this, who don't sit with a laptop on a cushion on their laps in a bedroom. You know, I'm sure. Anyway. So most importantly of all, her review has confirmed to her that she is on the right road. And there's another lovely line in what she wrote today, which is, I have to let this not wreck me, have to let it empower me. Absolutely. If she spends all of her time feeling she was a failure, she goes nowhere. It doesn't take her further forward. Yet everything about what she wrote is a set of learning that should take her forward onto the next stage, into the next stage, and the next stage. And so it's really important that you reward yourself and care for yourself by giving yourself the space to review what happened with that blip. So then what do you do next? Well, next you need to retune, reset your goal. And as you know, I like to use WOOP, which is wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. So reset your wish. So in Stephanie's case, actually I think I'm making an assumption here, but for demonstration purposes, in Stephanie's case, you may say, I wish to now be alcohol free for a year. So reaffirm your commitment. You may want to make it stronger. You may want to put some timelines on it. If you're moderating, you may want to really cast iron those times that you think you may be able to drink and how much you want to drink. So set your wish, go for your outcome, what it is that you will achieve, that you will feel or think if you achieve that goal. Now remember how Stephanie felt about, her blip, which is that she said that she had anxiety, a killer headache, that she didn't feel that, she felt that she'd let herself down. So what's the opposite to that? The opposite is that if she achieves her goal now in the future, that she will feel that she's got control over alcohol, control over her habits, that she'll be able to deal with social situations without giving in, and so on. So set your wish, a few short words, set your outcome, what it is that you will think or feel or do if you achieve that wish. And then replan, okay? So now Stephanie knows quite a lot about her triggers or her obstacles. So the second O in WOOP is about obstacles. So what are your obstacles? Is it some events coming up in the future? Is it certain friends? Is it certain triggers? Is it opening a bottle of wine when you cook in the evening? Whatever it is, list as many of them as you like and then work out your plan for each. And don't forget, you can do a WOOP just for today. So tomorrow I will be going into Spitalfields Market. So how am I going to avoid the sourdough donuts? So I will do a small WOOP tomorrow. My wish tomorrow is not to have a sourdough donut. If I achieve that, I will feel like I'm getting a head start on my New Year's resolutions. My obstacle is if I go anywhere near the donut van, I will eat one. So my plan is to get some healthy snacks in, to not go near Spitalfield Market, not go near that. And if I am, I think I need to go with the supervision of UC so he can make sure I don't go there. There you are, it's a plan. And so you can do that on a day-to-day basis, but you can also do that for the whole of your overall plan for changing your drinking. And the more you plan, just like Stephanie says, the more chance you have of avoiding those triggers. And that's what you're really ultimately after. And another key part of your plan should be, and if it doesn't quite go to plan, not that I'm giving myself an excuse to have a sourdough donut, but if it doesn't go to plan, I will pick up the next day, I will relook at my WOOP, and I will get back on it, because I know that the speed by which I get back onto my diet, my drinks goal, whatever, is the key to success. And then finally, I want you all to reward yourself. Stephanie's rewarded herself today by actually posting in the group an analysis of her weekend. She's given herself a great gift. She's given herself the gift of reflection that will allow her to move on. But I think it is really important that you recognise that you're doing something hard. If it was that easy, loads of people give up drinking, friends wouldn't put us under pressure, people wouldn't feel awkward about their own drinking, so make you want to drink as well. And remember, this is where some of their behaviour is coming from. It's because as a nation we are guilty as hell about how much we drink, and we want to just bring everyone else into the quagmire with us. So, make sure that you do things that reward you, whether it's giving yourself time, whether it's not feeling guilty over your hangover and rewarding yourself with a bath, I don't know why I say a bath today because it would be the last thing on my mind, but to do something nice for yourself, listen to some great music, but reward yourself. Don't ever self-flagellate and feel that you need to make yourself feel worse because you've lapsed. You need to do lots of things that make you feel better, make you feel positive, are all about self-care. And then, like I said, it's about repetition. It's not about the number of day ones you have, but the space between those day ones. So, some of you have had a few blips over the last few months, but in between those, you've gone, weeks and weeks and weeks without drinking. Equally, some of you have picked up straight away after a blip, and some of you have let that go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And the truth is you want the balance to be the other way around. You want weeks and weeks off drinking, your blips to be very short and be able to pick up again quickly. And that to me is the key, because every time you do that, you build your resilience, you get stronger, you're able to do it. And then you'll be in a situation a bit like Sarah, who has now actually done a month, and Sarah's had tons of day ones, and I'm so proud that she's got to where she has. And equally, there's a few other people whose names are escaping me again, who have done numbers of day ones and are now, you know, learning that the number of times they pick up again means that they're getting stronger and more resilient, and the sprints between lapses are getting longer and longer and longer, and that's what you're after. So I think I would just leave it with, before I pick up any questions, with Stephanie's point again, which is that I have to not let this wreck me. I have to let it empower me. And I think that's the same for everybody. If you're on a lapse or you had a lapse, you need to pick up straight away and get back on it. Cool. So yes, Jackie, you also had a blip and you picked up again really quickly. And what I was most pleased about was you didn't let, while remorse kicked in for a short while, you didn't let it last too long. You really pulled it back. I was really worried for a little while that you would feel such guilt that you would hit the fuck it button, but you didn't. And so you should be really, really proud of yourself. Yeah. So there's no more particular questions, but I will come on to the week after next about why, how we can help each other a little bit more. Next week, Andy's running the webinar because me and Lucy are away on holiday. So we'll be at the Social in Ireland on Sunday in Dublin. So Andy's amazing. He's been one of the most inspirational people to me. I met him at the same time as Lucy, and he's also part of Club Soda, but you just don't see him so much. He will do a cracking webinar about engaging with nature, which I am aware I also need to do more of, so I should really watch that webinar. Just a reminder that if you liked this particular webinar, please go to the website and make a one-off donation. That would be really cool. And as always, I am around to do answer questions, and then me and Lucy are away for a few days, but we'll still be in the group and so on. So brilliant, guys. Thank you for your time and speak to you soon. I'm going to finish off my blackcurrant. Oh, wait a minute.